Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 5:54 p.m. on Tuesday, the 17th of February 2026. I've had a busy afternoon sorting little metal findings, just like costume jewellery ones. They're all left over from my mother's stock from 30-40 years ago. I really should chuck them out. I don't know what I'm keeping them for. But I carefully preserve them and put them in this little plastic perspex containers I've been buying so I can fit them all in one space, and it's working, but it's just a hassle. It's a hassle doing all the sorting. And of course I dropped a whole tray of them, so then there was an hour or so of crawling around the floor picking up all the tiny little findings. So when you're a jeweler, whether you like it or not, and little tiny findings and things often get dropped, and the pain of my life, but it could have been worse. Could have been diamonds and emeralds and sapphires and opals. Am I? Speaking of which, I need to crack on with these opals, don't I? Well, one day. There's no hurry. I was intending to do it all in a few months and then buy more, but then I thought I can't really afford that hobby until I can afford to buy the slab cutting machine so I can actually cut pieces out. Otherwise it's just polished up rock, people of earth. That's the only bit of stripper opal in that one, but that's okay. The lovely lady threw it in for free with the other opals I bought, so it's not the end of the world as we know it. Polished up, it'll still make a nice sort of a, I don't know, desk ornament for someone. Just that streak of blue, electric blue, that's the colour of my room. So I got the groceries done as well today. That was a big job. I bought bread flour, big sack of bread flour, which was $27, which wasn't exactly cheap, and with my busted wrist it wasn't all that easy to load and get in and out of the trolley and get into the car, but I managed it. I figure I'll just start baking my own bread again, and not that it works out much cheaper, but at least I know what's in it, and it's nice and fresh, and it's a different feeling when you bake your own bread, people of earth. Right, so that's my update for today. Nothing terribly exciting to report. Bought a new mop so that Rati can clean without too much difficulty, and I was surprised, just the mop part, you know, the handle, $25 bloody. Well, everything's getting very expensive. But anyway, it's all happening in a far out way. Oh, the other thing I bought was a coconut, and I pierced a hole in it and drank the beautiful coconut water. I got exactly a glass full, 250 mils out of it. So that was delicious. I really enjoyed that. Thought, I pity I can't afford more. The coconut was expensive. It was about $5.20 or something. So that was another treat. But I bought it mainly, excuse me, my lungs are playing up. I bought it mainly because Kermie loves the coconut, white coconut meat so much. Oh, it's a nice treat for him. And the other expensive thing I bought that I never do, I must have been off my head today, I blew my budget. really blew my budget. But anyway, the other thing I bought that was a treat was figs. Never ever get figs, so I came home, I broke one in half, gave half to the birds, but they haven't shown any bloody interest in it. You weird little birdie boys, aren't you? Yes, Mama-T. Right, we better crack on with this story because the sun's gonna go down in an hour or so, and I'll have to get out of the bird room, let them sleep. I wonder what's aggravated my asthma. Probably all the dust from moving things around in the bookshelf. That'll be it. Doesn't take much. But anyway, it felt good sorting all the beads. I feel like I've done some jewellery work today. It's just a pity it's all crap and not really good for much. But it's organised. Very, very organised. Right, let us continue on with chapter 7. Owls and Aristocracy. Now winter was upon us. Everything was redolent with the smoke of olive wood fires. That sound is Turkey eating the last of the seeds I gave him. He demanded it. He threw a wobbly. He kept kicking the bowl around, so I gave him some. He likes his late afternoon snack before he goes to bed for the night. Don't we all? But yeah, he's a very demanding boy. Anyway, so let us continue. The shutters creaked and slapped the sides of the house as the wind caught them, and the birds and leaves were tumbled across a dark, lowering sky. The brown mountains of the mainland wore tattered caps of snow, and the rain filled the eroded rocky valleys, turning them into foaming torrents that fled eagerly to the sea, carrying mud and debris with them. Once they reached the sea, they spread like yellow veins through the blue water, and the surface was dotted with squill bulbs. Don't know what a squill bulb is. Logs and twisted branches, dead beetles and butterflies, clumps of brown grass and splintered canes. Storms would be brewed in among the whitened spikes of the Albanian mountains and then tumble across to us, great black piles of cumulus, spitting a stinging rain with sheet lightning blooming and dying like yellow ferns across the sky. It was at the beginning of the winter that I received a letter. Dear Gerald Durrell, I understand from our mutual friend Dr. Stephanides that you are a keen naturalist and possess a number of pets. I was wondering, therefore, if you would care to have a white owl which my workmen found in an old shed they were demolishing. He has, unfortunately, a broken wing, but is otherwise in good health and feeding well. You're not exactly in good health if you have a broken wing, people of Earth. But anywho, he means he's not dying of it, I suppose. He certainly won't be able to fly for a while, if ever. Anyway, if you would like him, I suggest you come to lunch on Friday to take him with you when you return home. Perhaps you would be kind enough to let me know. 1:45 or 1 o'clock would be suitable. Yours sincerely, Countess Mavrodaki. This letter excited me for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I had always wanted a barn owl, and for that was what it obviously was. And secondly, because the whole of Corfu society had been trying unavailingly for years to get to know the Countess. She was the recluse par excellence, immensely wealthy. She lived in a gigantic, rambling Venetian villa deep in the country, and never entertained or saw anybody except the workmen on her vast estate. Her acquaintance with Theodore was due only to the fact that he was her medical advisor. The Countess was reputed to possess a large and valuable library, and for this reason Larry had been most anxious to try to get himself invited to her villa, but without success. It's better, people of Earth. Dear God, he said bitterly when I showed him my invitation. Here I've been trying for months to get that old harpy to let me see her books, and she invites you to lunch. There's no justice in the world. I said that after I had lunched with the Countess, maybe I could ask her if he could see her books. After she's had lunch with you, I wouldn't think she would be willing to show me a copy of the Times, let alone her library, said Larry witheringly. However, in spite of my brother's low opinion of my social graces, I was determined to put in a good word for him if I saw a suitable opportunity. It's very kind of him, isn't it? I wouldn't have. Sod it. Treat you badly. But anyway, that's just me. It was, I felt, an important, even solemn occasion, and so I dressed with care. My shirt and shorts were carefully laundered, and I had prevailed upon Mother to buy me a new pair of sandals and a new straw hat. Oh, how sweet. Wanted to dress up for the occasion. What a lovely boy. I rode on Sally, who had a new blanket as a saddle to honour the occasion, for the Countess's estate was some distance away. Got tingling like I'm going to get another cold sore. It's why I'm twitching, but there's not much I can do about it. It's going to happen, it's going to happen. Oh, poor Mama T. So unkissable. Never mind, people of Earth. You've got to take the good with the bad. The day was dark and the ground mushy underfoot. It looked as though we would have a storm, but I hoped this would not be until after I had arrived, for the rain would spoil the crisp whiteness of my shirt. As we jogged along through the olives, the occasional woodcock zooming up from the myrtles in front of us, I became increasingly nervous. To begin with, I had forgotten to bring my 4-legged chicken in spirits. I had felt sure that the Countess would want to see this. Oh, he means an actual four-legged chicken preserved in spirits. I thought he meant some kind of weird deformed spirit. Trust me to go there. Anyway, I had felt sure that the Countess would want to see this, and in any case, I felt it would provide a subject of conversation that would help us in the initial awkward stages of our meeting. Secondly, I had forgotten to consult anybody on the correct way to address a countess. Your Majesty would surely be too formal, I thought, especially as she was giving me an owl. I think it's you say my lady, don't you, to a countess? Or is that to a duchess? Your Majesty is for a queen, Your Highness is for a princess. I'm not sure what a countess gets referred to as either. I'm not much of a royalist, not really. Prince Andrew ruined all that interest in royalty for me. The befoulment. Blech. Anyway. Perhaps Highness would be better, or perhaps just a simple ma'am. Puzzling over the intricacies of protocol, I had left Sally to her own devices, and so she had promptly fallen into a donkey doze. Of all the beasts of burden, only the donkey seems capable of falling asleep while still moving. The result was that she ambled close to the ditch at the side of the road, suddenly stumbled and lurched, and I, deep in thought, fell off her back into 6 inches of mud and water. The Sally stared down at me with an expression of accusing astonishment that she always wore when she knew she was in the wrong. I was so furious I could have strangled her. My new sandals oozed, my shorts and shirt so crisp, so clean, so well behaved looking a moment before, were now bespattered with mud and bits of decaying waterweed, so they would have been stinky as well. I could have wept with rage and frustration. We were too far from home to retrace our footsteps so that I could change. There was nothing for it but to go on, damp and miserable, convinced now that it did not matter how I addressed the Countess. She would, I felt sure, take one look at my gypsy-like condition and order me home. Not only would I lose my owl, but any chance I had of getting Larry in to see her library. I was a fool, I thought bitterly. I should have walked instead of trusting myself to this hopeless creature who was now trotting along at a brisk pace, her ears pricked like furry arum lilies. Present, I might just stop and get another cup of tea, people are there. I'm very thirsty. It's hot again, 27 degrees, it's creeping back up. Hot in the city tonight, people are there. I'll leave you facing the birdie boys. You can tell me what mischief they get up to while Mummy's out of the room. What mischief? I see you knock down your coconut flesh that I gave you. There you go. getting dark quickly, little boys. Astonishing how quickly it's getting dark. Right, outside still fairly light, but inside, well, let us continue with the story. Presently we came to the Countess's villa, lying deep in the olive groves, approached by a drive lined with tall green and pink-trunked eucalyptus trees. The entrance to the drive was guarded by 2 columns on which were perched a pair of white-winged lions who stared scornfully at Sally and me as we trotted down the drive. The house was immense. Built in a hollow square, it had at one time been a lovely, rich Venetian red, but this had now faded to a rose pink. The plaster bulged and cracked in places by the damp, and I noticed that a number of brown tiles were missing from the roof. The eaves had slung under them more swallows' nests, now empty, like small, forgotten brown ovens, than I had ever seen congregated in one spot before. I tied Sally up under a convenient tree and made my way to the archway that led into the central patio. Here a rusty chain hung down, and when I pulled it, I heard a bell jangle faintly somewhere in the depths of the house. I waited patiently for some time and was just about to ring the bell again when the massive wooden doors were opened. There stood a man who looked to me exactly like a bandit. He was tall and powerful, and with a great jutting hawk nose, sweeping flamboyant white moustaches, and a mane of curling white hair. He was wearing a scarlet tarbouche, a loose white blouse beautifully embroidered with scarlet and gold thread, baggy baggy pleated black pants, okay, and on his feet upturned charruquias decorated with enormous red and white pom-poms. His brown face cracked into a grin, and I saw that all his teeth were gold. It was like looking into a mint. "Kyrie, Darrell?" he inquired. "Welcome." I followed him through the patio, full of magnolia trees and forlorn winter flower beds, and into the house. He led me down a long corridor, tiled in scarlet and blue, threw open a door, and ushered me into a great, gloomy room lined from ceiling to floor with bookshelves. At one end was a large fireplace in which a blaze flapped and hissed and crackled. Over the fireplace was an enormous gold-framed mirror, nearly black with age. Sitting by the fire on a long couch, almost obliterated by coloured shawls and cushions, was the Countess. She was not a bit what I had expected. I had visualised her as being tall, gaunt and rather forbidding, But as she rose to her feet and danced across the room to me, I saw she was tiny, very fat, and as pink and dimpled as a rosebud. Her honey-coloured hair was piled high on her head in a pompadour style, and her eyes, under permanently arched and surprised eyebrows, were as green and shiny as unripe olives. She took my hand in both her warm little pudgy ones and clasped it to her ample breast. How kind of you to come," she exclaimed in a musical little girl's voice, exuding an overpowering odour of Parma violets and brandy in equal quantities. "How very, very kind. May I call you Jerry?" "Of course I may. My friends call me Matilda. It isn't my real name, of course. That's Stefani Zinnia. So uncouth, like a patent medicine. I much prefer Matilda. Don't you?" I said cautiously that I thought Matilda a very nice name. "Yes, a comforting, old-fashioned name. Names are so important, don't you think? Now, he there," she said, gesturing at the man who had shown me in, "he calls himself Demetrios. I call him Mustafa." She glanced at the man and then leaned forward, nearly asphyxiating me with brandy and Parma violets, and hissed suddenly in Greek, "He's a misbegotten Turk." The man's face grew red and his moustache bristled, making him look more like a bandit than ever. "I am not a Turk," he snarled. "You lie." "You are a Turk, and your name's Mustafa," she retorted. "It isn't. I'm not. It isn't. I'm not," said the man, almost incoherent with rage. "You are lying. I'm not. You are. I'm not. You are. I'm not. You're a damned elderly liar." "Elderly?" she squeaked, her face growing red. "You dare to call me elderly? You Turk, you. You are elderly and you're fat," said Demetrios Mustafa coldly. "That's too much," she screamed. "Elderly? Fat? That's too much. You're sacked. Take a month's notice. No, leave this instant, you son of a misbegotten Turk." Demetrios Mustafa drew himself up regally. "Very well," he said. "Do you wish me to serve the drinks and the lunch before I go?" "Of course," she said. In silence, he crossed the room and extracted a bottle of champagne from an ice bucket behind the sofa. He opened it and poured equal quantities of brandy and champagne into 3 large glasses. He really is a son of a misbegotten Turk. Who ever heard of mixing brandy and champagne together? By the goddess. I guess it would make the brandy bubbly, and the brandy might give some flavour to the champagne, but it does seem extraordinary, doesn't it? He handed us one each and lifted the third himself. "I give you a toast," he said to me solemnly. "We will drink to the health of a fat, elderly liar." I was in a quandary. If I drank the toast, it would seem that I was concurring in his opinion of the Countess, and that would scarcely seem polite. And yet, if I did not drink the toast, he looked quite capable of doing me an injury. As I hesitated, the Countess, to my astonishment, burst into delighted giggles, her smooth, fat cheeks dimpling charmingly. "You mustn't tease our guest, Mustafa, and I must admit the toast was a good touch," she said, gulping at her drink. Demetrios Mustafa grinned at me, his teeth glittering and winking in the firelight. "Drink, Kyrie," he said. "Take no notice of us. She lives for food, drink, and fighting, and it is my job to provide all three." Dear Goddess, it reminds me of someone. We won't mention that person's name. I said we won't mention his name. Never mind. He knows who he is. Right. "Nonsense," said the Countess, seizing my hand and leading me to the sofa, so that I felt as though I were hitched to a small, fat, pink cloud. "Nonsense. I live for a lot of things, a lot of things. Now don't stand there drinking my drink, you drunkard. Go and see to the food." Demetrios Mustafa drained his glass and left the room, while the Countess seated herself on the sofa, clasping my hand in hers, and beamed at me. "This is cosy," she said delightedly. "Just you and I. Tell me, do you always wear mud all over your clothes?" I hastily and embarrassedly explained about Sally. "So, you came by donkey," she said, making it sound a very exotic form of transport. "How wise of you. I distrust motor cars myself. Noisy, uncontrollable things. Unreliable. I remember we had one when my husband was alive, a big yellow one. But my dear, it was a brute. It would obey my husband, but it would not do a thing I told it to do. One day, it deliberately backed into a large stall containing fruit and vegetables, in spite of all I was trying to do to stop it, and then went over the edge of the harbour into the sea. When I came out of hospital, I said to my husband, Henri, I said, that was his name. Such a nice bourgeois name, don't you think? Where was I? Oh yes, where? Henri, I said. That car's malevolent, I said. It's possessed of an evil spirit. You must sell it. And so he did. Brandy and champagne on an empty stomach combined with the fire to make me feel extremely mellow. My head whirled pleasantly, and I nodded and smiled as the Countess chatted on eagerly. My husband was a very cultured man, Very cultured indeed. He collected books, you know, books, paintings, stamps, beer bottle tops. Anything cultural appealed to him. Just before he died, he started collecting busts of Napoleon. You would be surprised how many busts they had made of that horrible little Corsican. My husband had 582. Henri, I said to him, Henri, this must stop. Either you give up collecting busts of Napoleon, or I will leave you and go to St. Helena. I said it as a joke, though, only as a joke. And you know what he said? He said he had been thinking about going to St. Helena for a holiday with all his busts. My God, what dedication! 'Twas not to be borne. I believe in a little bit of culture in this place, but not to become obsessed with it. It's interesting, this perfectly paraphrases or parallels a TV series I finished watching last night called, and it was a Turkish TV series, called The Museum of Innocence, about a man who becomes obsessed with a young woman and falls in love with her, and he's engaged to marry someone else, and he starts keeping trophies of all his encounters with the beautiful young woman. And I don't want to ruin the whole show for you, but there was a car that was a bit, not possessed, but, well, there was an unfortunate incident, so I don't want to ruin it for you. But he also had a museum dedicated to his obsession for this woman, and I kind of thought, you know, when they had the terrible accident, that car was a bit possessed too. It had soaked up all the energy of its owner, being obsessive and a bit controlling, and it was a very interesting show actually. I highly recommend you watch it. I haven't ruined it completely for you. There's a lot more than that came into the show. It was about 9 episodes. But it was very well done. I actually really enjoyed it. It was beautifully filmed and emotional, and there were just little parallels. I thought, oh, yes, that reminds me of, you know, certain people that I used to have in my life but no longer do. But anyway, not to worry. It's funny how they're talking about being obsessed over, in this case, collecting busts of Napoleon. Demetrios Mustafa came into the room, refilled our drinks and said, "Lunch in 5 minutes," and departed again. He was what you might call a compulsive collector, my dear. The times that I trembled when I saw that fanatical gleam in his eye. At a state fair once, he saw a combine harvester, simply immense it was, and I could see the gleam in his eye. But I put my foot down. "Henri," I said to him, "Henri, we are not going to have combine harvesters all over the place. If you must collect, why not something sensible, jewels or furs or something?" It may seem harsh, my dear, but what could I do? If I had relaxed in an instant, he would have had the whole house full of farm machinery. Demetrios Mustafa came into the room again. "Lunch is ready," he said. Still chattering, the Countess led me by the hand out of the room, down the tiled corridor, then down some creaking wooden stairs into a huge kitchen in the cellars. The kitchen at our villa was enormous enough, but this kitchen simply dwarfed it. It was stone flagged, and at one end a positive battery of charcoal fires glowed and winked under the bubbling pots. I wish I had a large kitchen and a large bathroom, a larger bedroom. Oh, if only I could win that house in Noosa, but everyone else is dreaming of the same thing, people of Earth. But yes, the walls were covered with a great variety of copper pots, kettles, platters, coffee pots, huge serving dishes and soup tureens, which I do need to polish all my copper up. It's gone dingy looking. They all glowed with a pinky red gleam in the firelight, glinting and winking like tiger beetles. In the centre of the floor was a 12-foot long dining table of beautiful polished walnut. This was carefully set for two, with snowy white serviettes and gleaming cutlery. In the centre of the table, two giant silver candelabras each held a white forest of lighted candles. The whole effect of a kitchen and a state dining room combined was very odd. It was very hot and so redolent with delicious smells, they almost suffocated the Countess's scent. "I hope you don't mind eating in the kitchen," said the Countess, making it sound as though it were really the most degrading thing to eat food in such humble surroundings. I said I thought eating in the kitchen was a most sensible idea, especially in winter, as it was warmer. "Quite right," said the Countess, seating herself as Dimitrios Mustafa held her chair for her. "And, you see, if we eat upstairs, I get complaints from this elderly Turk about how far he has to walk. It isn't the distance I complain of, it's the weight of the food," said Dimitrios Mustafa, pouring a pale green gold wine into our glasses. "If you didn't eat so much, it wouldn't be so bad." "Oh, stop complaining and get on with serving," said the Countess plaintively, tucking her serviette carefully under her dimpled chin. I, filled with champagne and brandy, was now more than a little drunk and ravenously hungry. I viewed with alarm the number of eating utensils that were flanking my plate, for I was not quite sure which to use first. I remembered Mother's maxim that you started on the outside and worked in, but there were so many utensils that I was uneasy. I decided to wait and see what the Countess used and then follow suit. It was an unwise decision, for I soon discovered that she used any and every knife, fork or spoon with a fine lack of discrimination, and so, before long, I became so muddled I was doing the same. He should have listened to his mother. The first course that Demetrios Mustafa set before us was a fine, clear soup, sequined with tiny golden bubbles of fat, with fingernail-sized croutons floating like crisp little rafts on an amber sea. It was delicious, and the Countess had 2 helpings, scrunching up the croutons, the noise like someone walking over crisp leaves. Somehow she reminds me a bit of my Auntie Lottie in Germany. She was not a countess, but she lived like one. It was quite astonishing having meals with her, actually. There was also a great deal of cutlery and having to behave like an absolute queen. And, you know, she wasn't like cross if I made a mistake or anything, but turtle soup, which was her favourite delicacy, and those croutons. Well, Demetrios Mustafa filled our glasses with more of the pale, musky wine and placed before us a platter of minute baby fish, each one fried a golden brown. Slices of yellow-green lemons in a large dish, and a brimming sauceboat of some exotic sauce, unknown to me, accompanied it. The Countess piled her plate high with fish, added a lava flow of sauce, and then squeezed lemon juice lavishly over the fish, the table, and herself. She beamed at me, her face now a bright rose pink, her forehead slightly beaded with sweat. Her prodigious appetite did not appear to impair her conversational powers one jot, for she talked incessantly. "Don't you love these little fish? Heavenly. Of course, it's such a pity that they should die so young. But there we are. So nice to be able to eat all of them without worrying about the bones. Such a relief. Henri, my husband, you know, started to collect skeletons once. My dear, the house looked and smelt like a mortuary. 'Henri,' I said to him, 'Henri, this must stop. This is an unhealthy death wish you have developed. You must go and see a psychiatrist.' Demetrios Mustafa removed our empty plates, poured for us a red wine, dark as the heart of a dragon, and then placed before us a dish in which lay snipe. Excuse me. Pardon me. Did I drink all my tea? Yes. Alright, that was most unexpected and uncouth. I do apologise. I'm a lady, you know. You wouldn't know by the way I reflux and belch and biliously carry on, but it's probably only going to get worse as I get older, so I'll just have to accept it and shake it off. Shake it off, people of Earth. Right. Dark as the heart of a dragon, the red wine, and then placed before us a dish in which lay snipe, the heads twisted round so that their long beaks could skewer themselves, and their empty eye sockets looked at us accusingly. I would not have been able to eat that meal. I'm not fond of fish either. It's the only thing I would have partaken of so far is probably the soup. By the gods, then I would have been ravenous. I have a prodigious appetite too. They were plump and brown with cooking, and each having its own little square of toast. They were surrounded by thin wafers of fried potatoes, like drifts of autumn leaves, pale greeny-white candles of asparagus, and small peas. Sounds very artistic, doesn't it? Sounds quite lovely. Right, the sun's almost gone down, my birdie boys. It's almost birdie bedtime. Can you go to bed, Kermit? Excuse me one moment while I cover up their cages and get them into their own little cages. Yes, little Kermit boy. Gotta go in your own cage. You gotta go. Yes, I know. It's all very important to sleep in your own space. Mama likes to sleep in her own space. Bo likes to sleep in his own space. And you have your space. He says, no I don't. No I don't, Mama. I don't want to be in here to annoy Bo first thing in the morning when I wake up. This we cannot allow. Isn't that correct, little Bo? We cannot allow the bullying that goes on before the mama too gets out of bed. Oh, you're good little birdie boys. Coming, Kermit? Come on. Come on. Come on, little handsome boy. Yes. Good listening. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. That's my gorgeous boy. Ah, back in your own cage. It's all happening in a far out way. Good boys. I love you. Right. In you go. Come on. Hurry up. Hurry up, Mr. Squiggle. He says, don't hassle me. I'm Kermit. I do things in Kermit time. Yes, I know Kermit, but I'm making a video. Alright. You go on your swing? Mummy fixed it and made it how you like it with 2 hangers instead of 1. Yes. Alright, I'm going to... Oh, careful, my boy. I'm going to close your cage now. Sit there. You can watch the mama a bit longer before you go to sleep. You can too. It's not completely dark yet. Then I'll have to get out of your room and let you sleep the sleep of the rainbow, of the Indian ringneck and the cockatiel. Right, where were we? I'm back in the room, people of Earth. Right, they're dining on snipes surrounded by fried potatoes, asparagus and small peas. Excuse me. Just close the blind while we're here. Get everything ready. Get everything organised. Right. I simply cannot understand people who are vegetarians, said the Countess, banging vigorously at a snipe's skull with her fork so that she might crack it and get to the brain. I felt quite repulsed by the smell. I would have been... Anyway, I wasn't there, fortunately. Henri once tried to be a vegetarian. Would you believe it? But I couldn't endure it. Henri, I said to him, this must stop. We have enough food in the larder to feed an army, and I can't eat it single-handed. Imagine, my dear, I had just ordered 24 hares. Henri, I said, you will have to give up this foolish fad. It struck me that Henri, although obviously a bit of a trial as a husband, had nevertheless led a very frustrated existence. Demetrios Mustafa cleared away the debris of the snipe and poured out more wine. I was beginning to feel bloated with food, and I hoped that there was not too much more to come. But there was still an army of knives and forks and spoons unused beside my plate. So it was, with alarm, I saw Demetrios Mustafa approaching through the gloomy kitchen, bearing a huge dish. "Ah," said the Countess, holding up her plump hands in excitement. "The main dish. What is it, Mustafa? What is it?" "The wild boar that Macroyanus sent," said Demetrios Mustafa. "Oh, the boar! The boar!" squeaked the Countess, clasping her fat cheeks in her hands. "Oh, lovely! I had forgotten all about it. You do like wild boar, I hope?" I said that it was one of my favourite meats, which was true, but could I have a very small helping, please? "But of course you shall," she said, leaning over the great, brown, gravy-glistening haunch and starting to cut thick pink slabs of it. Wild boar or pork of any kind should never be pink, people of Earth, unless you want to forget the name of the disease. It's one of the reasons why it's not kosher in, Judaism and Islam. It's a terrible disease you can get from eating undercooked pig. It's very, very horrendous. Anyway, she placed 3 of these on my plate, obviously under the impression that this was, by anyone's standards, a small portion, and then proceeded to surround them with the accoutrement. There were piles of the lovely little golden wild mushrooms, chanterelles, with their delicate, almost winey flavour, tiny marrows stuffed with sour cream and capers, potatoes baked in their skins, nearly split and anointed with butter, carrots red as a frosty winter sun, and great tree trunks of white leeks poached in cream. I surveyed this dish of food and surreptitiously undid the top 3 buttons of my shorts. We used to get wild boar such a lot when Henri was alive. He used to go to Albania and shoot them, but now we seldom have it. What a treat! Will you have some more mushrooms? No? So good for one. After this, I think we will have a pause. A pause is essential, I always think, for a good digestion, said the Countess, adding naively, and it enables you to eat so much more. The wild boar was fragrant and succulent, having been marinated well with herb-scented wine and stuffed with garlic cloves, but even so, I only just managed to finish it. The Countess had 2 helpings, both identical in size, and mopped the sweat from her brow with an inadequate lace handkerchief. "A pause, eh?" she said thickly, smiling at me. "A pause to marshal our resources?" I felt that I had not any resources to marshal, but I did not like to say so. I nodded and smiled and undid all the rest of the buttons on my shorts. During the pause, the Countess smoked a long, thin cheroot and ate salted peanuts, chatting on interminably about her husband. The pause did me good. I felt a little less solid and somnolent with food. When the Countess eventually decided that we had rested our internal organs sufficiently, she called for the next course, and Demetrios Mustafa produced 2 mercifully small omelettes, crispy brown on the outside and liquid and succulent on the inside, stuffed with tiny pink shrimps. I really would have gone hungry at this dinner. Pork and shrimps. Dear goddess. And smashed in brains of snipe. That really would have put me off my lunch. "What have you got for a sweet?" inquired the Countess, her mouth full of omelette. "I didn't make one," said Demetrios Mustafa. The Countess's eyes grew round and fixed. Which is how I feel when I'm denied my pudding too. "You didn't make a sweet?" she said, in tones of horror, as though he were confessing to some heinous crime. "I didn't have time," said Demetrios Mustafa. "You can't expect me to do all this cooking and all the housework." "But no sweet," said the Countess despairingly. "You can't have lunch without a sweet." "Well, I bought you some meringues," said Mustafa. "You'll have to make do with those." "Oh, lovely," said the Countess, glowing and happy again. "Just what's needed." It was the last thing I needed. The meringues were large and white and brittle as coral and stuffed to overflowing with cream. I wished fervently that I had brought Roger with me, as he could have sat under the table and accepted half my food, since the Countess was far too occupied with her own plate and her reminiscences really to concentrate on me. "Now," she said at last, swallowing the last mouthful of meringue and brushing the white crumbs from her chin, "now, do you feel replete? Or would you care for a little something more? Some fruit, perhaps? Not that there's very much at this time of the year." I said no, thank you very much. I had had quite sufficient. The Countess sighed and looked at me soulfully. I think nothing would have pleased her more than to ply me with another 2 or 3 courses. "You don't eat enough," she said. "A growing boy like you should eat more. You're far too thin for your age. Does your mother feed you properly?" I could imagine my mother's wrath if she had heard this innuendo. I said, "Yes, Mother is an excellent cook, and we are all fed like lords." "I'm glad to hear it," said the Countess, "but you still look a little peaky to me." I could not say so, but the reason I was beginning to look peaky was that the assault of food upon my stomach was beginning to make itself felt. I said, as politely as I could, that I thought I ought to be getting back. "But of course, dear," said the Countess. "Dear me, 4:15 already. How time flies." She sighed at the thought, then brightened perceptibly. "However, it's nearly time for tea. Are you sure you wouldn't like to stay and have something?" I said no, that Mother would be worried about me. "Now, let me see," said the Countess. "What did you come for?" "Oh, yes, the owl. Mustafa, bring the boy his owl and bring me some coffee and some of those nice Turkish delights up in the lounge." Mustafa appeared with a cardboard box done up with string and handed it to me. "I wouldn't open it until you get home," he said. "That's a wild one, that." I was overcome with the terrifying thought that if I did not hurry my departure, the Countess would ask me to partake of Turkish delight with her. I love real Turkish delight. But probably not after all those courses. Even I might have shrunk from that. So I thanked them both sincerely for my owl and made my way to the front door. "Well," said the Countess, "it has been enchanting having you, absolutely enchanting. You must come again. You must come in the spring or the summer when we have more choice of fruit and vegetables. Mustafa's got a way of cooking octopus which makes it simply melt in your mouth." I said I would love to come again, making a mental vow that if I did, I would starve for 3 days in advance. "Here," said the Countess, pressing an orange into my pocket. "Take this. You might feel peckish on the way home." As I mounted Sally and trotted off down the drive, she called, "Drive carefully." Grim-faced, I sat there with the owl clasped to my bosom till we were outside the gates of the Countess's estate. Then the jogging I was subjected to on Sally's back was too much. I dismounted, went behind an olive tree, and was deliciously and flamboyantly sick. When I got home, I carried the owl up to my bedroom, untied the box, and lifted him, struggling and beak-clicking, out onto the floor. The dogs, who had gathered round in a circle to view the new addition, backed away hurriedly. They knew what Ulysses could do when he was in a bad temper, and this owl was 3 times his size. He was, I thought, one of the most beautiful birds I had ever seen. The feathers on his back and wings were honeycomb golden, smudged with pale ash grey. His breast was a spotless cream white, and the mask of white feathers round his dark, strangely oriental-looking eyes was as crisp and as starch-looking as any Elizabethan's cuff. His wing was not as bad as I had feared. It was a clean break, and after half an hour's struggle, during which he managed to draw blood on several occasions, I had it splintered up to my satisfaction. The owl, which I had decided to call Lampedusa, simply because the name appealed to me, seemed to be belligerently scared of the dogs, totally unwilling to make friends with Ulysses, and viewed Augustus Tickletummy with undisguised loathing. I felt he might be happier till he settled down in a dark, secluded place, so I carried him up to the attic. One of the attic rooms was very tiny and lit by one small window, which was so covered with cobwebs and dust that it allowed little light to penetrate the room. It was quiet and as dim as a cave, and I thought that here Lampedusa would enjoy his convalescence. I put him on the floor with a large saucer of chopped meat and locked the door carefully so that he would not be disturbed. That evening, when I went to see him, taking him a dead mouse by way of a present, he seemed very much improved. He had eaten most of his meat and now hissed and beak-clicked at me with outspread wings and blazing eyes as he pitter-pattered about the floor. Encouraged by his obvious progress, I left him with his mouse and went to bed. Some hours later, I was awakened by the sound of voices emanating from Mother's room. Wondering sleepily what on earth the family could be doing at that hour, I got out of bed and stuck my head out of the bedroom door to listen. "I tell you," Larry was saying, "it's a damned great poltergeist." "It can't be a poltergeist, dear," said Mother. Poltergeists throw things." "Well, whatever it is, it's up there clanking its chains," said Larry, "and I want it exorcised. You and Margot are supposed to be the experts on the afterlife. You go up and do it." "I'm not going up there," said Mother tremulously. "It might be anything. It might be a malignant spirit." "It's bloody malignant, all right," said Larry. "It's been keeping me awake for the last hour." "Are you sure it isn't the wind or something, dear?" asked Mother. "I know the difference between wind and a damned ghost playing around with balls and chains," said Larry. "Perhaps it's burglars," said Margot, more to give herself confidence than anything else. "Perhaps it's burglars, and we ought to wake Leslie." Half asleep and still drowsy from the liquor I had consumed that day, I could not think what the family were talking about. It seemed as intriguing as any of the other crises that they seemed capable of evoking at the most unexpected hours of the day or night, so I went to Mother's door and peered into the room. Larry was marching up and down, his dressing gown swishing imperially. "Something's got to be done," he said. "I can't sleep with rattling chains over my head, and if I can't sleep, I can't write." I don't see what you expect us to do about it, dear, said Mother. I'm sure it must be the wind. Yes, you can't expect us to go up there, said Margot. You're a man. You go. Look, said Larry. You are the one who came back from London covered with ectoplasm and talking about the infinite. It's probably some hellish thing you've conjured up from one of your seances that's followed you here. That makes it your pet. You go and deal with it. The word pet penetrated. Surely it could not be Lampedusa. Like all owls, barn owls have wings as soft and as silent as dandelion clocks. Surely he could not be responsible for making a noise like a ball and chain. I went into the room and inquired what they were all talking about. It's only a ghost, dear, said Mother. Larry's found a ghost. It's in the attic, said Margot excitedly. Larry thinks it followed me from England. I wonder if it's Mawake. We're not going to start that all over again, said Mother firmly. I don't care who it is, said Larry. Which one of your disembodied friends? I want it removed. I said I thought there was just the faintest possibility that it might be Lampedusa. What's that? Inquired Mother. I explained that it was the owl the Countess had given me. I might have known it, said Larry. I might have known it. Why it didn't occur to me instantly, I don't know. Now, dear, said Mother. It's only an owl. Only an owl? Said Larry. It sounds like a battalion of tanks crashing about up there. Tell 'em to get it out of the loft. I said I could not understand why Lampedusa was making a noise, since owls were the quietest of things. I said they drifted through the night on silent wings like flakes of ash. This one hasn't got silent wings, said Larry. It sounds like a one-owl jazz band. Go and get it out. Hurriedly I took a lamp and made my way up to the attic. When I opened the door, I saw at once what the trouble was. Lampedusa had devoured his mouse and then discovered that there was a long shred of meat still lying in his saucer. This, during the course of the long, hot day, had solidified and become welded to the surface of the saucer. Lampedusa, feeling that this shred of meat could do well as a light snack to keep body and soul together until dawn, had endeavoured to pick it off the plate. The curve of his sharp amber beak had gone through the meat. Oh, what's going on, little handsome boy? Did you fall off your perch? Oh my goodness. You need to go on your swing. Go on, go sit on your swing and go to bed. And stop being a silly birdie boy. You know you're being a silly birdie boy. It's been in your cage for 3 days. You should have adjusted to the new reality by now. You're a very stubborn pigeon. A very stubborn pigeon indeed. Right. The curve of his sharp amber beak had gone through the meat, but the meat had refused to part company with the saucer, so that there he was, effectively trapped, flapping ineffectually round the floor, banging and clattering the saucer against the wooden beads in an effort to disentangle it from his beak. So I extricated him from this predicament and carried him down to my bedroom, where I shut him in his cardboard box for safe keeping. And he really should have left him a bowl of water. What is it about men and boys not wanting to give their pets a bowl of bloody water to drink from? See also the man with the guide dog at the Mater Hospital, by all the gods. It's just rude. Right. Part 3. Part 3 I shall read tomorrow. I'm not even going to read the little blurb. I'll read that tomorrow. People of Earth. Right. Have a beautiful afternoon, evening, morning, night. It's night time here in Brisbane, Australia now. Wherever you are in the space-time continuum, remember to be happy and don't forget to drink water. Give some to your pets. It's like, I'm sure owls really enjoy all that, chopped up meat and mouse, but they need a drink too. Don't get all their moisture from meat. I guess he would have tipped the water over though, probably, but at least offer it to him, by the goddess. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to toddle off, watch some TV. I've finished that very lovely but weird, kind of weird and obsessive love story. So I have to find something else to watch this evening. I'm sure there'll be something else suitable. So there you are, people of Earth. Have a lovely evening, and I'll be back tomorrow with part 3, chapter 8, Hedgehogs and Sea Dogs. Bye for now.